Good evening, Somers, and welcome to the Somers Town Board regular meeting, Thursday, October 11th, 2018. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated. Patty, roll call.
Councilman William G. Faulkner.
Here.
Councilman Richard G. Clinchy.
Here.
Councilman Anthony J. Sirico. Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr.
Here.
Supervisor Rick Morrissey.
Present. Okay, we're going to start off with public comment. I'll make a motion to open public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Is there anyone here for public comment? Public comment could be on any topic, any comment, anything that's you want to ask the town board or present to the community. Okay, so hearing and seeing no one for public comment, I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, moving on to approval of minutes from June 7th, 2018 through July 12th, 2018. Any comments or issues, updates, edits with the minutes?
Not for me.
Nope.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Department reports. Patty?
I have reports from the town clerk, building inspector, zoning, board of appeals, plumbing, Bureau of Fire Prevention, Parks and Recreation, planning and engineering, tax receiver, and director of finance.
Thank you. Okay, so under Town Board Agenda B, it is my pleasure to introduce Richard Lyman. He was the past supervisor of Pound Ridge and really the driving force behind the creation of the New Dawn Family Resource Center. I don't want to steal any thunder, but this is a center that allows northern Westchester people under stress from domestic violence to come in and get counseling rather than having to go down to White Plains. So this is a coalition that Dick put together, and without further ado,
Oh, and what do we contribute towards it?
What?
We contributed.
Yes, and hopefully he'll mention that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yes, sir.
We're live.
Thank you, Rick. As you know, last year about this time, my team had come, I was not available that evening, but to present to you a proposal of Somers joining a 5-town IMA with Pound Ridge, Lewisboro, Bedford, and North Salem to assist in paying for the rent to create this center so that victims of domestic violence had a place to go up here that solved a host of issues. Does that work better? Okay. So Somers joined unanimously for 2 years, each town putting up $5,000 a year for 2 years to pay the rent. We secured a space in Lewisboro at a very favorable rate and have subsequently started to furnish it. We've received some great donations out of New York City and Down County on furniture. And while I was busy doing the nuts and bolts stuff on that, which is what I like to think anyway, Patty Reyes D'Agostino and Lynn Hillenbrand Borsellino both worked on starting to put together the programming that would be necessary to accomplish the goals. And what I would like to do would be to have them let you know the work that they have done, which is, when you think about what they put together, it's pretty amazing over the short period of time. since we've been open in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Dave.
Good evening. Can you hear me? All right. So the last time a group of us was before the town board, you had taken part in the IMA, and since that period, we've received a grant. It was a 2-year grant for $100,000. That was the nexus of what's called the Northern Westchester Risk Reduction Team. That is to create training for police, counseling services, legal advice, so that they can, the very high risk, those that high risk being determined by a scale called the lethality assessment, and the police departments have all been trained in using that. Those people then have a way out right away. We're trying to reduce fatality at this point. So out of that grant, right now, there are approximately 12 clients serviced just out of that grant. But that's just one grant, and we know that there are many other victims that do not meet the high risk, but are victims of domestic violence. And so we decided that with the space that was there, that we really needed to put those tax dollars to work that you had participated in as part of the IMA. And we knew that the rate being nationally the average 1 in 4 people being affected by domestic violence, that there was quite still a community of people that needed assistance. And so we started making some contacts, but the first thing in order that we needed to do there was furnish it, as Mr. Lyman explained. We received generous furniture donations, so we have things, 3 rooms broken out for different services. Some of them are counseling, some of them are training, some of them are group rooms. And then we've also put in some security cameras as well, and we have a computer in there right now. And now Lynn will explain to you the other contacts that we've made.
Right. So the main domestic violence organization that is working is out of the center already, we said, is Hope's Door. They're with the lethality assessment team. And we also reached out to the Putnam Northern Westchester Women's Resource Center, and they came down. And we also have My Sister's Place. We invited them to come to the center as well. And both of them are very interested in working with us and working out of the center. Right now, Hope's Door works out of the center on Thursdays, but what we'd really like to have is a schedule where, My Sister's Place comes on Mondays and Putnam Northern Westchester comes on Tuesdays, and we just alternate so that there are services that are available all the time from the domestic violence organizations. Another thing that we are really interested in getting off the ground is working within the school districts. And so we found an organization called One Love, and they were started when Yardley Love, who was a senior in college at the University of Virginia, was murdered by her boyfriend. And her mother and sister started an organization to teach communities about healthy relationships. And, unhealthy relationships in students is an epidemic. And so what One Love does is it actually goes into the school district. It starts in elementary schools. They have a very basic program for healthy relationships for elementary schools, and then they also go into the middle schools, high schools, and colleges. And so we're working with some people on getting teams together to actually go into the school districts and start training our youth on healthy relationships. We've also reached out to the Mental Health Association of Westchester, and they've come up to our site, and we're looking to partner with them. And we've been working with Pace Women's Justice Center and the Office for Women. We also have 2 people at the center that are trained in rape crisis counseling. So, our goals are to continue, and we have also reached out to Westchester Community College, and we're working with them on trying to have some kinds of workshops up at the center for just reintegrating victims of domestic violence and getting them back into the workforce. So training them in computer skills or career counseling, a lot of things going on up in the center.
So Our goal is to continue to use the space so that New Dawn can be a vessel for other services that exist south of 287 that are more difficult for people in this area to reach out to, at least within a timely basis. Because as you know, as we had discussed in our initial presentation, that when you need to get an order of protection and you have children to take care of and limited means to get there, spending the better part of a day getting to White Plains and staying there for hours is not exactly accessible. So that was the ultimate goal. There's also some infrastructure that had to be done in order to get this service going. So we are New York State Incorporated now. We have a board as well. And we can now start looking at applying for grants in the future, or at least partnering with these organizations so that we can be part of grants. And that's the plan, just to continue we are not competing with other services, we are simply being the vessel where the other services can come and service the clients, which we already know they have, but have difficulty getting to.
So you're really serving as a community resource, at least for Northern Westchester and for Somers. I know the chief and his staff have been through the training, heighten awareness when they go on a call, what to look for. And also, Kim McGuire, I think the chief has assigned her to work with the domestic violence and your team over in Lewisboro.
And so what you should also know is that, that lethality assessment in that team, the risk assessment team, because of the money that you guys have invested in the center and in the program, it's going to be expanded. They're looking into expanding that program countywide. And so if you guys take the opportunity to think of yourselves as leaders in this pilot, it's something that at some point will make Will County a lot safer. So congratulations.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
So there'd be no reason for the rest of the county to not engage in that, right? It's just a matter of training. It seems
Right.
It makes a common sense sort of
It's
thing.
a matter of training, it's a matter of infrastructure. Remember that New Dawn Family Resource Center has this grant, and basically it is focusing on those Northern Westchester towns. They need to take that model and expand it to a similar model or a county-wide model in order to get these other areas. So that's what they're looking at right now, and they're applying for grants on the county level to do that.
So you are centered and partly financed by Northern Westchester. Does a person who come to you, and so you're aiming this at women and men, as you said last time you were here, I think it was last year, were you there? Here, yeah. It was a great presentation, very powerful, and aimed at women and men, obviously more women usually than men, at people who have suffered. And it's, what do you do when you've suffered this? Where do you go and how do you know? And obviously it's been in the news and it's very topical, and people get confused and emotional. My question to you, though, is this. Do they have to be from this area, or do you service anyone who comes in the door with that?
Well, currently, you should know that we are servicing through the other service providers. New Dawn itself does not have a phone number or a counselor who services. So therefore, when a call comes in that is part of the risk reduction team, the entire team has access to New Dawn Family Resource Center. If there are people that didn't meet the level of that, however, the police refer them to the service providers know that they're up here, and they will make appointments and have access to New Dawn Family Resource Center. So it is not that we ourselves are counseling them,
Right.
but they are still going through the other resources. Now, part of the infrastructure going forward is, yes, we will have communications and a website and all of that, and that's part of our plans, hopefully, that will get done down the road. But the first thing that we needed to do was actually make the partnerships with all the different agencies that already have clients, but they just need more accessibility.
Since we're right on the border, just up there a little bit, it's Mayapack, Carmel.
Yeah.
Are those people different county?
I don't think anybody would ever be turned away.
I wouldn't think, right?
Nobody would ever be turned away. But it's not as if, as I said, we are not personally servicing, so it's not as if
Right.
we're opening the doors. However, if a service provider has somebody and this location would be more accessible to their client who happens to be in Putnam, then by all means.
Well, and again, Putnam, Northern Westchester Women's Resource Center, they're interested in coming and servicing clients in our center. So they service clients in Putnam, and they also service a lot of clients in Westchester. So that would probably be the provider that we would, call to come in and service clients.
Great.
I just have to say something. I've been around in police work.
Chief,
for
want
years.
to come over to the mic? Thank you.
Can't hear me in the back.
Can't hear you on TV.
This is a very, very, very worthwhile program. The town of Somers, we have, I hate to say it, more than our share of domestic violence. We have an officer, Kim McGuire. She goes over and above, even in her off-duty time, because there's no specific time that these things happen. It could happen at 3 in the morning. People are getting hurt. People's lives are in danger in Somers. So this program is one of the greatest things that I've ever seen in my long time in police work. And I want to thank you guys very much for starting this. And it's expanding all the time. Nobody gets turned away. We get people. One lady came from Connecticut, and we have ways of helping them. We might not do it in Northern Westchester, but we do it somewhere. And I really got to thank you guys for bringing this forward, and I'm sure that the town board is 100% behind us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, wrap it up. Dick?
We'll make it short because I think most people are
No, it's
interested in other stuff.
appropriate. You started it,
But-
that you should finish
But
this.
what Lynn and Patty neglected to mention is that on October 22nd, there's a press conference at the center because we, through the Department of Criminal Justice Services, have received a $20,000 grant that is earmarked specifically towards getting more computers and the other furnishings that we need to make the center even more usable. And also, as a direct result of the 5 towns getting together, the $220,000 grant that we received to do the initial risk reduction team, they just received an additional $450,000 that will expand that team because the county's not putting any money into this. This is state money, and the federal government is also ponying up again, and we're getting some training now out of Connecticut, and what these 5 towns started, and I keep trying to drill this home to people, this is going to be a statewide program when we're done on the risk reduction team. And it all started up here, and these small towns up here are the ones that are driving some of the really good stuff that happens environmentally and socially and everything else throughout this county. And each town board should be very proud of the fact that they all unanimously jumped in on this and did it. So from me, I say thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Dick. And if it weren't for your doggedness and sticking with this and making time in your schedule to come out and visit with all the town boards, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you, New Dawn, for what you're doing, and Dick, for your personal involvement in this and your continued involvement, because we're confident that it's just going to be bigger and better.
We'll be back next year.
And we'll be here
You'll be welcome. We'll be waiting for you.
Happy to help.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Our next agenda item is the Shenorock Lincolndale project updates presented by Joe Barbagallo, and Joe is the town's engineer. No, that's fine.
Let everybody up there see it.
Yeah, we have it.
No, just do that.
All right, I promised I'd pick up the microphone. Let me start my clock. Rick gave me a very specific time schedule here. So, all right, well, welcome. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about the updates on some of the work we're doing with the lake communities around the town, and most specifically Shenorock and Lincolndale. I know you guys can't see that in the back, really, can you? Is it all right? All right. So really, there's 3 items we're going to talk about. One is the Somers Lake Sustainability Program Committee, and I'll give a status update on that. Shenorock and Lincolndale Sewer Project update, and then we're going to talk about the Shenorock Stormwater Project update. So I've got 3 items for tonight. So on the committee side, so the town has formed a Lake Sustainability Committee. I see some of the participants in the audience. It right now has had a lot of participation out of Lake Shenorock, Lincolndale, Purdy's, and Dean's Bridge, although I know that the supervisor has reached out to other lake communities to participate as well. There's been routine meetings, and really what the focus here is to come together. We all look back at, when this town was revitalized after the trains came in. It was really our lake communities that really revitalized this town. People came from down county and the city to come and be here. This is how these communities were formed, and really was key towards revitalizing our town. Since that time, eutrophication happens, development happens, and our lakes have suffered. And I really applaud the town board for pulling this and all the participants for pulling this committee together to really work towards trying to improve 3 basic elements. We have really a 3-pronged approach that we're looking to drive here. One is around water. One is around recreation, right? And there's been a number of activities around recreation, including looking for local waterfront revitalization program grants. One was submitted this year for Lake Shenorock, and we're waiting to hear, fingers crossed, we should hear pretty soon right now. So one prong is around leveraging grant opportunities to drive recreation. Another prong is around improving stormwater quality that coming into the lake, to remove nutrients coming into the lake that would therefore contribute to eutrophication. When I say eutrophication, what that means is when you see the more, as nutrients come in, they feed things like algae. Algae grows, it dies, it creates a mat, which ultimately turns a lake into a swamp over time, right? So that's basically the process of eutrophication. And so our goal from the water quality side is to remove, in this instance, nutrients that would help contribute to that. And then the third prong is around improving and preventing septic systems, whether it be through leaking septics that happen through surface water or through direct connections that happen over time, especially in bedrock communities like we have here, right? That would also drive those coliforms or those other contaminants into the lake. So those are the 3-pronged approach, and that's really the mission of this committee. I know the committee met most recently on September 20th. And we started talking about the next steps, identifying lake community project needs, soliciting community feedback to help develop Shenorock and Lincolndale sewer projects, and the next meeting I think is scheduled for January 20th. So that's really some great work being done by some of your neighbors in town. So I want to move on to the one of those prongs is really around the sewers, right, and removing that septic waste from getting into the lake. So just to refresh here, the town was earmarked for a $10 million grant, bless you, was earmarked for a $10 million grant. That money is sitting right now with Westchester County. It's been there for quite a while, since the signing of the MOU in 1993, I want to say, right? 1993. We've studied it a number of ways. In 2015, many of you might remember, I remember working with Dennis on this, right, we did a wastewater study to look at this first step of spending all $10 million in the town and, of course, sewering the entire town, sewering the entire community of Shenorock. At that time, we moved in the direction of looking at septic maintenance programs to help with septic maintenance. But then once the lake started qualifying for as an inland water body, became eligible for additional grants, we really took a step back and initiated that 3-pronged approach that I talked about before and came back to take another look at these projects. In 2017, that project, that look was to do a detailed detailed look and started laying out some concepts for how we would lay out sewer systems in both Shenorock and Lincolndale. The goal here, obviously $10 million is not enough to do both. So what we're going to do is put some base infrastructure in around both lakes and sewer. You know, we're connecting close to between the two communities, you know, close to 200 total homes between those two communities. And so that design was completed, and now we move into the step of actually getting our hands on that money. It's a little easier said than done. So we've been coordinating with state legislators. We've been coordinating with the New York City DEP because they have to kind of say, yes, we're okay releasing this money. We're making pretty good progress on that. We had a great meeting with the legislators, and they're going to support you know, these projects. Now, the wastewater from, one of the stumbling blocks is the wastewater from Shenorock is going to basically be brought to the preserves and then pumped from there to the Peekskill wastewater treatment plant, which is a county-owned facility. Even though it bears the name of the city, it's a county-owned facility. So the county legislator has to say okay to that, right? So that is an element that we're working on. The Lincolndale piece we're going to be sending over to Heritage Hills, and we already have an agreement in concept in place with them and commitments from them to service that. So that's where we are, and we're going to continue working in that. I would anticipate that by the spring we'll have resolution on that money, and that we'll start moving forward with more detailed design. So one of the things that, you know, some people say, well, why are we doing this, right? I mean, right now, the existing wastewater disposal systems, and eventually these are going to fall, you know, are basically, they're privately owned and operated septic systems for wastewater disposal, right? I mean, if one of these failed, it's going to cost, you know, between $10,000 and $50,000, depending upon the site location. And of course, the longer they go, the more likely that is to happen, right? So, and they also, the septic systems, as I've described before, do have a potential to kind of get wastewater into the water bodies, which is not good environmentally. And this isn't just me saying this. I actually pulled a couple of quotes out from the EPA. Uh-oh, my boards are falling. You know, and I just pulled out a couple, right? The most important factor influencing regional groundwater contamination is the density of these facilities, meaning the septic systems on groundwater contamination, or the performance of on-site wastewater systems is a national issue of great concern. State agencies report that these failing systems are the third most common source of contamination in our area, right? So that's kind of the why, right? And, you know, so let me talk specifically about your project and about the two projects. So the sewer system includes a couple of elements. There's a wastewater system, eliminates pollutant loads contributed by the residential system. It's really to drive revitalization and will have positive effects on property values. So the sewer system, its project itself, includes a number of elements. You really can't see this, can you? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can fix this. That's what I get for taking the little tab off this thing. All right, so the wastewater system includes a couple of elements. So basically, we're going to put a pipe in front of houses that are going to take water to the bottom of the hill, right? Gravity system that will drain to a pump station. And what I have shown here is what is a pump station. It's a buried unit that's like a manhole that is below grade. It has, you know, an above grade controls panel, but otherwise everything else is buried. You don't see anything in there. So that water will flow into that pump station, and then that pump station will then take it from Shenorock over to the preserves. And then there's another pump station there that takes it from the preserves over to the wastewater plant in Peekskill.
And Joe, how big is that unit?
I mean, that's sized based on the amount of flow, but, you know, if I look at the one that we just put in over at the other side of town, it's maybe an 8-foot diameter manhole, 10-foot diameter manhole, you know, and the depth is depending upon how much capacity we need, you know, but that's about the size. The control panel is not going to be any bigger than, you know, something like this is the control panel.
Joe, one other point I think important, when you put these in, they're going to be sized for the community.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Rick. Yeah, so in all instances, this base infrastructure that we're talking about is not just for the phase one. We're designing the base infrastructure, which including this pump station, to service the entirety of both communities at the time when, as we move forward and connect up additional homes. So That's a good point, so I appreciate you bringing that up, Rick. So what I have here is some pictures that I know are too small for you to see, so I brought some extras, some bigger ones. This is Lincolndale. All right, so this is, since we're in Shenorock, I'll focus in on Shenorock. So the pump station location would be on the lot that is where I guess the PlayStation, where the playground is right now over here. So this is, again, will be a buried item. It will not be seen. We'll just have above ground. It'll have odor controls on it, so it's not anything that we have to worry about in that regard. Right, and you can see here, these are the streets. The initial areas that will be sewered include all the areas that are shown in green. So you can see we're really taking care of that base infrastructure on the uphill side of the lake, and then as we build out, we'll expand and add pump stations and as necessary if there's other low spots as we move through the community. I can leave this around, and folks, I'll leave it here so that you can continue to see them. See how I'm doing on time. All right.
So, Joe, a question that may be asked, why not my street? So weren't these locations, these are the most impactful?
Yes.
Negatively impacting the lake?
Correct. When we did our original study, we identified the high impact areas, is what we call them, which are those areas that are within proximity to the lake and proximity to catch basins that are discharging directly into the lake. Right? So we really focused in on the areas that we thought we would have to get the biggest bang for the buck for the $10 million spent between the two communities.
So you're basically creating kind of like a shield around the upper part of the lake.
Correct. Correct. Oh, and what I didn't point out is the pump line. The pump line will head up, cross, and then into the preserves that way. See, the preserve station is here. This is the end of Shenorock, and then this would be into the preserves at this point.
Joe, as time goes on, people who are near that line that goes north to the pump station at the preserve, would they be able to say, hey, listen, I have enough of this septic tank stuff, man, let's...
Yes, people on that, there is an opportunity with what's called low-pressure systems to actually have some people connect directly into that line if along that way. Those will be the kind of things that we're looking at as we move into the next phase of design to understand exactly what kind of pumpage would need and how that connection would happen. But yes, the thought is if that pipe is in front of your house, you're going to have an opportunity to be connected to that pipe.
Just so, yeah, I figured that. I just didn't want someone saying it's a one-time thing, and if I'm not in these spots beginning, I'll never get into this. There will be opportunities if you're along that line.
Yes, correct. So what everybody's always curious about is how much is this going to cost, right? So to you as the...
Joe, why don't you show Lincolndale?
We have another lake.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the second is Lincolndale, and again, you can see we're taking a similar concept to where we are connecting the most impactful areas. Those would be the ones directly around the lake, all shown in green again, and the pump station located to the east, and then pumping from there over to the Heritage Hills line, which was just put in for recent development in that location.
Okay.
So folks are, of course, always interested in costs, right? We're evaluating a number of different alternatives on how to use the $10 million. I know the program committees had some thoughts about connection fees and whether, it would be, how to apply those, whether as one time or whether as part of annual O&M, and I know that we're working through that right now. But just to give you a sense of what we're talking about, one is that based on the study we did in 2015, we were looking at about $700 a year for operation and maintenance cost, and to also give you a sense of broader systems that start to include some other capital costs, because at some point we're going to continue to seek grants, right? We're going to continue to seek grants through the Water Infrastructure Investment Act and low-interest loans through State Revolving Fund. There'll likely have to be some bonding at some point, And, so I wanted to give you some numbers that are typical of systems that include both O&M and capital costs. So the State Controller's Office average is about $995 per year. I know we're working right now on Bedford system. That one is about $900 a year, but the individual homeowners have to pay for their own connections, right? And I know when we did Peach Lake over in North Salem, that was about $1,200, but that $1,200 rolled in the connection costs into it. So there was no upfront fee. It was just an annual of $1,200. Just to give you a sense of the amount that this is expected to cost. So the sewer project next steps is we're still working on with the DEP and the Westchester County legislators to secure the money to get the county to commit to giving us access to the treatment plant over in Peekskill. We're going to have continued meetings with the committee to continue to look at the best ways to structure the program and structure the districts, and then we move into a preliminary design. We'll be working very closely with Roland on the formation of a sewer district that would incorporate the thought process right now and likely to move forward is to basically start the sewer district as the entirety of the community. Entirety, but the only ones having to pay the connection, the fees would be those that are connected initially, right? And then as people get connected, you start paying as you get connected in the future. Now, if we took a bond issuance, we have to work with Roland on how that bond issuance would work across the district. But we'll have a number of public meetings between now and then to go through those details. And then, of course, once we get through the formation of the district, then we'll move into final design and construction. This process is going to take, depending upon a number of factors, is probably going to take a couple of years to get to the point where we're in construction. But we're not talking 10. I think it's within 5 years. I think we'll have sewers in the ground in these areas, and we'll probably already be working and moving forward with other portions of the community.
5 years for that, or 5 years for expanding it?
I'm trying to look realistically at what I think a schedule is. It's really that it'll likely take us another 6 months to get the money pinned down, and then we're going to move into a process of the preliminary design, which is probably another 6 months. Formation of the district, maybe another 6 to 9 months, right? And then we start construction of this, which is probably a 1-year construction effort. So that is when I think this starts to happen. I've learned not to give too tight of deadlines, right? So I say within 5 years. Just because I wouldn't want to be here 5 years from now. And you say, well, you said 2 years, right? So I just want to give some kind of a timeline, but I think within that time period, in a very similar schedule that I laid out, is what I think you'll start to see things happen here. All right, so that is the sewer project.
But before we get to the sewer project, why don't we...
No, I said that is the sewer project. I was going to ask for any questions on that. Yeah. I don't know if anybody has any questions on the sewer project. Yes, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to...
You need to come up to the microphone.
Do we have a portable? There's no portable one? All right.
Yes, Bob Gilmartin from Ross Drive. I've been to many of these meetings on this topic, and I just wanted to emphasize that some of the homes, and it's hard, I would have to look at the map, obviously, but some of the homes are below grade, and gravity flow would not work up to the central distribution line, and an effluent pump would be necessary. And I'm hoping that the board is taking into consideration the fact that there's could be a significant cost to the homeowners or whoever's going to pick up the additional cost for these effluent pumps. I don't think my neighbor is going to be amenable to letting me run a sewer line through the back of my property line through their front yard in order to meet the gravity requisites and metrics for the down cycle line. So again, I just want to make sure this doesn't fall by the wayside, and it's definitely it's definitely a huge, could be a huge consideration both on the initial install, the electric, and the O&M side of the overall project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good point.
Yes, good point. And that is not atypical. Low-pressure systems, as I mentioned, for when you're pumping into a force main, are very similar to the systems that Mr. Gilmartin was referencing that you would have to put in the home. So we do have to look at that depending upon where we are. Sewer lines could be, relatively deep. We usually try to put them 4 or 5 feet below grade. We would have to go through that. That's part of the design process when we get into there, is to start really looking at that. Anybody else have any questions? Wow, I must have done a good job. No questions?
Yeah.
All right, great. Very thorough. All right, so the other project that we're working on is the Lake Shenorock Stormwater Retrofit Project, and this is an update to that. So the background is we talked about the impaired water body and the impaired nature. We have the picture here of the lake showing some of those signs. We applied for a grant about 1.5 years ago for it's a water quality improvement grant program. We received monies from the state to do some stormwater improvements. These stormwater improvements, which I'll describe, are what's really good about this is that we all know at some point we want to get to the point where we can dredge the lake. Right? But in order for us to be eligible to get grant monies through this program to dredge the lake, we have to demonstrate that we've accomplished nutrient control coming into the lake, right? So we've basically taken care of the dirty water coming into the lake before they'll give us money to dredge the lake. So this project will help advance that goal of getting to that point. And this program is one that we'll continue to leverage as we move through this program. We completed a feasibility study. We looked at a number of solutions, and we really engineered what I think is a very cost-effective way to treat the stormwater. So what the work plan includes, it's going to be an installation of a number of hydrodynamic separators. Okay, what we're seeing here, what is a hydrodynamic separator? It's essentially tankage where water goes in and a vortex is created, so sediment drops out, and it basically removes, it's a treatment process that as it moves through, the sediment is dropped, which, believe it or not, a lot of phosphorus is actually attached to the sediment. So removing the sediment is a very key aspect to preventing phosphorus from getting into the lake. And then there's these additional chambers that provide additional treatment then it outlets. From that outlet, it will discharge into a swale. And we're reinforcing those eroded swales to make sure that, again, no more sediment is going into the lake. Remember, we need to demonstrate that we're doing all we can do to control the sediment going into the lake so that we can continue to leverage this program into the future. We're going to install a maintenance access path, some informative signage, and remove invasive species and some hydroseeding. And I have a photo of what this is going to be. So I don't expect that everybody's going to be able to see this, but let me just describe it. So this is the area that is on the northern part, northeastern corner of the lake. Kind of remember we talked about this is the area where we're going to put the pump station. So it'd be the hydrodynamic separator is actually going to be very proximate to the location of where we're going to put that pump station. So we're going to create hydrodynamic separator here, 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 and here. Okay, so, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so those 4 are going to be at the end of existing pipes. So we basically are going to go to the end of the pipe where it right now discharges into a ditch that drains into the lake, and we're going to dig a hole. We're going to drop a hydrodynamic separator into it, and the water is now going to flow through that area and be cleaned in the process. So what we're also doing, in addition to stabilizing those swales that go into the lake, we're also going to be building an access path that goes from essentially Adams, the water department here, where Adam spends a lot of time, to the large parking area that is in proximity to the dam. And in the process, remove all the invasive species between there, those 2 points. So the invasive species are all that scrubby-looking brush that prevents you from being able to see the lake. All that stuff is going to be removed from this point all the way through this point. All right, so we think that it's going to not only serve a purpose of water quality, but also to improve the visual aspect too. and provide some walking path access so folks want to walk. And I know kids like to fish in the lake, and you know, it'll start the base of a project that we can continue to expand upon in the future. When it's all said and done, we're going to be removing about 8.78 kilograms of phosphorus a year, which is a pretty decent amount. To give you a sense of like what the town's obligations are over a 5-year period is to remove 50 kilograms a year. So this is a pretty nice chunk of phosphorus reduction that we're doing in this area that will have a benefit on the lake. We all know that these areas where all these pipes come out is where all the siltation is happening that is filling these lakes up. So this is really intended to stop that process from happening and send cleaner water into the lake. So we bid this job. We received 4 bids. A local contractor, Nicky Diggs Excavating, was the low bid contractor, and we've been able to secure. And I've been speaking with, you know, we have a grant, but the grant only covers 75%, right? But we've been working very closely with our partners at the East of Hudson Watershed Corporation in order to help us with the funding, because they're looking to, they need those phosphorus credits too, so they're willing to contribute funds to help us do that, and they're going to contribute matching funds that basically pick up the town's portion of the match for the grant. So, you know, right now what we're looking at is it's about $150,000 coming to us from the EOH, and about $450,000 and change coming out of the grant to pay for the, to pay for the entire project, including the engineering as well as, you know, the construction of that project. We're here this evening, and one of the action items that the board is being requested to take is to authorize the supervisor to award this contract, given a couple of conditions are satisfied. And the schedule that we're looking at is that we opened the bids on solicited bids in the beginning of September. We verified the lowest bidder by the end of September. We met with that bidder, and now we're in this process of getting all the paperwork in order to line up those commitments. You know, one of the things, those things that I said, give the supervisor authorization to award contingent upon a number of items. One of those items is we have a verbal from EOH, but we of course want the resolution so the funds are actually committed. We're not going to get that until the 16th. And then we anticipate very shortly thereafter being able to issue notice of award and beginning construction. And the goal is to have this done before Christmas. All right, they may need to have to come back in the spring, likely to have to come back in the spring to put some seeding down, because it's tough to grow grass in December. Although with this year, with all the rain, and who knows, maybe we can. But so that's really the schedule. That's really the projects, and that's what I have. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. 27 minutes, Rick.
Thank you. Yeah.
27, right? Not bad.
You're good.
Rick asked me to get it done in 20 minutes.
Oh, nice.
East of Hudson. So anybody else have any questions?
Joe, maybe you could, following up on that question, why does the East of Hudson want to give us money? Who are they, and why do they want us to do
Okay,
this?
good question. So that's not a 1-minute answer, but no. So the East of Hudson was formed because, back in I guess it was the early 90s, there was a new surface water treatment rule that was issued from the EPA that triggered a requirement for New York City to have to build what they priced at the time to be a $4 billion treatment plant to treat the New York City's drinking water. So as an offset to that program, the DEP said, well, are there other ways we can handle this? And they chose to go for a filtration avoidance determination, which included a number of elements. One of those elements was heightened requirements around stormwater, and so they've been working with the state to drive heightened requirements for all the communities inside of the East of Hudson watershed, of which we're a part of. Originally, those were individually identified for each community. Each community was kind of on their own, and I really applaud our elected officials by getting together and saying, you know what, we're going to be better off working together and trying to meet this collective requirement. So when they pooled all of those requirements, just as I referenced in the past, earlier, that Somers' requirement is 50 kilograms per year across the entire east of Hudson watershed is 459 kilograms per year. So the goal of the east of Hudson is to figure out how to reduce phosphorus across the watershed by 459 kilograms every 5 years, okay? And the DEP provides them funding to assist in doing that. So that's why they're so interested is because, and willing to fund, is because it helps not the town, but really the town as part of the east of Hudson. And we're really focusing and working together in what is referred to as bubble compliance. So, you know, if as long as we hit the 459 kilograms, it wouldn't matter. Like if you think of a place like Newcastle, it's really hard for them to have open areas where they can install systems to remove phosphorus, right? It's much easier for them to contribute into a group so that, let's say, Somers or Brewster or Carmel can go over their allotment, and Newcastle can benefit from that, and of course have to help contribute towards that, but they benefit from that. So that's I guess the quick answer to the EOH and how the EOH works and how this project is a part of it.
Right. So
Yes,
Joe, sorry.
Dennis.
Could you just talk about that grant that we're going to, that future grant?
The future, I'll just repeat the question. So the future grant for the sewer?
No,
For the LWRP? Right, so the local waterfront revitalization program is a grant program through the DEC that provides funding to revitalize local waterfronts. Now, that local waterfront needs to be designated as an inland water body, in which Shenorock is, as well as Lincolndale, and I think Purdy's is getting close to being on that list, right? So, you know, some of our lakes now have that designation, right, which makes us eligible for the program. So step one is you have to have a plan. What are you going to do to improve the recreation? So step one of this grant application is to get monies to develop the overall comprehensive plan for the local waterfront revitalization. And then once you have that plan and that plan is approved, then through this program you can start applying for monies to start completing some elements that are in that plan. Right, like just to use, I know when we looked at this way back when we were doing the Park District, we looked at putting in a fishing pier, for example, right? So if the local waterfront revitalization program plan had a fishing pier on it and that plan was approved, then the next year you might go and say, hey, we want to apply for the money to build that fishing pier, for example. So that's how the program works. And again, when you're dealing with these programs, you put an application in July, you keep your fingers crossed till November, then it takes you 4 or 5 months to get access to the money, and then you can do the project. So hopefully we'll be successful. This is our second time that we're submitting. This time we very much focused it in on Shenorock because it's right now publicly owned, which gives us a better chance than privately owned lakes. Because of course, any time that public money is being spent on private lands, it's not going to score as well in a competitive grant environment as those that are fully accessible to the public. So our last application, we tried to do more of a town-wide and encompass all the lakes, and the feedback we got was to start honing in one lake at a time. So we're moving forward with Shenorock because of the benefits associated with its public ownership. How was that? Great.
So Joe, the two big takeaways, or the two of the good takeaways, are that you're hoping to have it done by the end of the year, and it's not going to cost anything.
Yes, on the stormwater project. Hoping to have it done before Christmas,
stormwater, right.
and it's not going to cost anybody anything, although I've been working, I was on the phone with the DEC for 2 hours today negotiating around something, so hopefully that pans out. Yes, sir.
Are we planning on using that lake for swimming again?
That will be really up to the local waterfront revital. Oh, the question was, are we planning to use the lake for swimming again? And really that'll be dictated by the program, the local waterfront revitalization plan that is developed. If the community comes together and decides as part of that planning effort, which requires intense public input, that's part of the program, and it's deemed that, yes, we want to see the lake to be swimmable again, then that would be part of it.
But Joe, wouldn't we also have to, I would love to, because I think like Dennis, I did swim in it many years ago. But it's going to be town-owned.
Right, it is
Or it is
town-owned.
town-owned. So I guess that would come into play also. I mean, the liability issues and things of that nature.
Yes, I mean, that's, yes. That's why the plan will have to be developed, and if it's part of the plan, which the town will be part of, the community will be a part of, and if everybody agrees, then that's how it moves forward. We're not dictating that right now.
There's a question?
I saw another question back here.
Yeah, you mentioned that invasive species will be removed from a portion of that property. Going forward, who will be responsible to continue to remove invasive species? Are they part of the functioning of what you're installing?
No, they're not part of the function. We want to remove invasive species because they're invasive and they're actually erode as their roots go into the banks of the lake. It actually loosens that soil, makes it more erodible, and actually contributes to more issues. So,
You have to continue to remove them going forward?
yes. So what we'll be doing is that we're going to remove invasives, and then as part of we're trying to make it as maintenance-free as possible, in all honesty. That's why we're putting in wood chip paths, and we're trying to, put down some hydroseed mixes that are, can kind of crowd out the invasives and only need to be knocked down once or twice a year. But it's going to be a town-maintained access path.
The town owns it right now,
Yeah.
so the maintenance and all would be up to the town.
Yes, ma'am.
Down the road, if you just, is a swimming area that it's not owned by us anymore, what would happen? Would the whole town be able to swim there? Would it be open to everybody?
If the local waterfront plan committee determined that it was going to be, that swimming was going to be an element of that, it is a town-owned facility now, so my suspicion is that it would be accessible to the town, although we really haven't had those kind of detailed conversations yet, because we're not at that point. But just by the virtue of it being now a town-owned facility, I would think that it would have, there would be conditions that would make it more accessible from outside.
It's not that big if you open it to the town.
See, I grew up swimming in a lake. I grew up in Lake Cassie, so but I know my kids won't go in a lake, so I don't. Any other questions?
Joe, real quick, you said earlier the supervisor asked about what about the people who say, well, why not me? I can't get in yet. When am I going to be able to get in? And we know that is going to happen over time. What about the people who are on this plan and may not want to opt in? Do they have the option to opt out?
Typically, the way this works, and I almost wanted to defer this question to Roland, but typically what happens is if your project is benefited when the pipe goes in front of your house, and as a result, you're encumbered, you're going to be part of the district. Okay, now, if you're not contributing flow, right, and in these initial phases where our goal is that the only cost to you will be the O&M and any rolled-in connection fees that the program committee has been providing guidance to us on. If you're not connecting in that scenario, you probably would not have to contribute. However, and as future phases happen, and maybe we have to go get some SRF money, some low-interest loans, and now, therefore, there's an interest payment. That interest payment is going to be spread across the district. So you may have, in that instance, when we get to that stage, you may have a pipe in front of your house. You may choose not to connect, so you may not pay now, but you're likely in the future, as we start encumbering debt, to pick up some of that debt burden.
It's also, I think, likely that the funding agencies, at least for the first phase, are going to want a commitment from the town that if they fund this program, that everybody in the first phase at least is going to hook up.
Right, and that's why we really have been talking about options to make it a very low barrier of entry for those in those initial connections, because we do need the initial flow. So, I can't. It's not like build a pump station. I need flow to keep that pump station moving, right? So we are clearly looking at the phase one of figuring out how to roll those costs in a way to make that barrier very, very low for the initial entry. I'm going to go, yes.
Okay, I guess the question is like, when and if, how would people, the town know, the person know that you're going from their house? I mean, are you going to give us a year, 2 years?
Yeah, there's...
I'm looking at the map No, I'm just a little confused by it right now.
So this is we're still at a relatively early stage. When we get to the plan, map, and report stage, there's a lot more detail, there'll be a lot more meetings, we'll have a list of, I mean, actually, in the report we've developed, we already have a list of parcel IDs already, right? But once we get to that point in time, we'll have a preliminary design, we'll know a little bit more. You know, when we lay out at an initial stage here, we're quite conservative. We're hopeful that as we start to go into the design, we're going to be able to expand this and pick up more, more homes. But you'll be well noticed, and I believe we send out notices as part of the plan, map, and report. So you'll wind up getting something in the mail. Yeah, Chip.
I understand the reason for having a bulk of this around the lake because most houses have septic. What about the properties that feed the lake? Like my backyard feeds the lake because you guys decide to pull a tree out of drainage ditch.
So the question on the were you talking stormwater or sewer?
Well, the sewers would the sewers follow the stormwater up and away, or how does it come?
Well, the way that we lay these out is we find the logical low point and then work for, pump station by pump station, right? So each phase will be built based on the location of a pump station, and then we look at what are the areas that are the most impactful and have gravity drainage into those areas. And, so that's how we'll lay it out. So usually, water courses tend to be in the lower laying areas, right? So I don't know specifically.
Higher because the water drains downhill.
I think where you are, you're over on Cypress, right? So I don't know. We may be running that line right past your house. I don't know. So we have.
No, it's a block over.
It's a block over from Cypress, right? Yeah. Sorry, block over. Yes, sir.
I'm not totally clear. There's a connection fee initially to be hooked up to the sewer system, right?
Say that again?
There's a connection fee for an individual home to be hooked up to the sewer system?
So typically, the way sewer systems.
Joe, if you repeat the question.
The question is.
We don't have a mic that goes back there.
The question is, and I think I got this right? Is there a connection fee for the initial connection? So we put the pipe in the street, you're in phase one. Is there a fee for you to connect? I believe is what the question was. So what I will tell you is typically the way that we build a sewer system, like we're doing in Bedford or was done over in Peach Lake over in North Salem, is usually the municipality puts the pipe in the street and stubs it out to your property line. And the connection from that point to your home is typically the responsibility of the homeowner, okay? So I say typically because that may be how future phases might work. We're still working through those details. We have a lot of funding and work to do. The initial phase, we're talking about having the town and using some of this money to help get the pipe closer to your house so that, and we're working through some of those details. I think the program committee was, provided some input on that. So we're working through that right now, but we're trying to make that fee, at least for the first phase, to be significantly less, lower barrier of entry for the residents.
And then, is there an annual fee to be connected to?
Yes. So the annual fee, the question is there an annual fee? And those were those numbers I put up there before. We estimate that the fee will be, I think it's going to be less than $700 a year, honestly, but to be in that ballpark. And I tried to give you some of those other numbers about once you start encumbering debt, what are we seeing in other communities? And it's in the order of $1,000, all in.
So is that added to my taxes each year, or do I get a bill?
So the question is that added to taxes, or do you get a bill? It acts like a sewer district, and it's, how do you do that, Adam?
Typically, right now, we
In the mic.
charge you for the water going in, and then we would charge you for the water going out.
There'll be a water bill, though.
There'll be a separate water bill?
There'll be a sewer bill in addition to the water.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just for the operating.
So yes, you'll be a separate bill not rolled into the taxes.
And now I'm delinquent, how do you cut me off?
I'll cut the water off.
Adam will shut your water off.
How do you shut the sewer off?
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So how do we get more money? So you say you're at $10 million from 1890. You know, it's 2018. We have a problem here. I'm familiar with the Brewster. We had sewer and new water lines built into septic tanks at no cost to the homeowner. We pay that in your bill in the future, but how do we raise more? How do we get more funding?
Yeah. Right now, the New York State is actually very good. The question is, how do we get more funding going forward? So there's the Water Infrastructure Investment Act is a very well-funded program through the state. There's also Clean Water Fund programs and water quality programs so New York State, we're actually very lucky, has a lot of program money out there, and these monies, which is beneficial to us, do not require an income test, right? Which makes us income test, meaning for communities that have a certain amount, that the average income is over a certain amount, it's more difficult to get money. So it's really aimed towards some of the poorer, the northern communities, upstate New York, and those kind of things. But these programs don't have that test, right? So we actually will fare very well in these programs, and we basically have to get the point where we have the design done, and then we're going to go and apply for money. Believe me, we're going to look to get money on these. Even as we move forward here, as we get this design done, it's not out of the question that we're going to go and try to get more money from the state as part of that. But it's really through state programs is going to be our best access to capital.
And Joe, just to be more specific, the town has under contract a professional grant writer. So all these programs that Joe's talking about, they notify the town every time there's a request for proposals. So if we get anything that's water quality related, we're on it and applying for it. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next number of years to get these grants so we can improve water quality and the environment in our community.
But Joe, this is an example, I think, where most good people know that there's things that need to be done, not just in Somers or New York State, but in the country, that are capital projects, infrastructure projects, where we need to do better in terms of saving energy, helping the environment, water quality, et cetera. And that's where the creativity comes in. Because good people would say, well, I'd really like to, but you know what, that's a big bill I can't afford. We went through this when we were talking about the parks project. So I think that there are some things that the state will need to do that we would take part of that will leverage it. So for example, I think last week I was saying, up in Massachusetts, they did this in Falmouth. They sewered the town there. And to help people who weren't able to handle that connection, they bonded over 30 years. This would be similar to the Energize project that New York State did through NYSERDA, where you upgrade your house, reduce energy consumption and emissions, and that gets paid through your electric bill. Now, that's an innovative program. I think something like that is what New York State needs to do, and we can help research that to help the average owner. And then we're doing what we all know is right, is protect the water supply for the future.
Yep, absolutely. Yes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, look, now I can reach you thanks to the chief.
For you, we have a microphone.
Hi, my name is Stacy Silverstein. You probably have seen me on Facebook. There's just a group of Shenrock residents who've come together trying to help the community at large, and a few of us are on this Lakes Committee with the town. If you are sitting here itching to get involved and be a part of the input that goes into swimming, no swimming, this, that, and the other, please see me. Email shenrock.neighbors@gmail.com. Just remembered the password yesterday. Please get involved. This is all of our community, and we're making this as good as it can be for all of us. And it can only be better with everyone's input. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we're probably wrapped up, right?
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you all for your time tonight. Thanks for your good questions and attention, and a couple of rounds of applause, so I'll take it when I can. So thank you very much.
Of course. So the next item on the agenda is Joe mentioned about the stormwater retrofit project, and now comes time. We went through the bidding process, and I'd like to make a motion to award the bid for the Lake Shenorock stormwater retrofit to Diggs Excavating in the amount of $442,511 and authorize the supervisor to execute the contract.
Second.
Subject to the contingencies set
Subject
forth
to
in
the contingencies.
the Woodard and Kern memo.
October 3rd letter, yes.
Okay.
Subject to those.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Looking
Thanks,
forward
Joe.
to it. Rick, I'm gonna leave this here.
Yeah, we'll take,
I'll leave that there if anybody. What was that? Oh, I gotta take my easel, don't I?
I don't know.
Do you want to wait?
We're gonna people looking at stuff like that, so.
You want to let them look at that for a second?
Take 5 minutes.
okay, why don't we take a 3-minute break, and we'll give you a chance to come up and see if you can find your street.
Now we bring out the big.
Okay, thank you. We're reconvening. Our next agenda item is the Shedrock Community Update. I'd like to invite our Chief of Police, Mike Driscoll, to address us.
Good evening. My name is Mike Driscoll, and I'm Chief of Police in the town of Somers. Have been for the last 30 years. Before that, I was 20 years in New York City. It's a little different up here from the Bronx. I like to be very informal. I was asked to come here tonight to talk about concerns concerning the police and problems in Shedrock. I live in Lincolndale.
That too.
So the same problems that you have in Shedrock mirrors what we have in the whole town. You're not unique. One of the main problems is speeding and stop signs. We can give out tickets, thousands of tickets, slows them down, but we can't control human nature. I don't know what the answer is to this crazy driving we have today. People are texting, and we have terrible accidents, deaths, and we can slow them down, but we can't control behavior. Unfortunately, in each neighborhood, it's the people who live in the neighborhood who are committing the offenses. We don't like to give out summonses to the people, our neighbors, the first time. We like to warn and admonish. A lot of times people take heed and they slow down. We have our speed machine that we had out here. We left it here for approximately 3 weeks, and that does slow them down. But after the machine goes, things start up again. So I'm asking people, especially the ones that are here tonight aren't the ones I'm trying to get, because you're all good people. You don't speed, you don't run stop signs. So the ones that aren't here is who I'm talking about. Are there any questions on that?
That's a simple question. I was just wondering, I think on Cherry Street in Bedford, they installed a bunch of speed bumps. Is that an option? And I don't think that's costly at all.
Speed bumps. Speed bumps, in my opinion, and I'm sure the town board will speak further after I finish, don't work. Stop signs, in my opinion, don't work. The reasons being, most people, when they're slowed down for any reason, a stop sign, a speed bump, they'll make it up when they go past. They'll go faster to make it up. That's been proven too. Speed bumps, I know there's been a lot of lawsuits on those things.
You know, the funny thing about speed bumps, and the chief's 100% right, I mean, what the chief said is true. We've been here before, not in Shedrock, but other places where people say about the speeding, and the chief comes in and we focus on that area. So the neighbors come in, they complain, we focus on it, and about a month later, the neighbors come back and complain that they're getting all these tickets. So it's sort of a circular thing. And here, if you put a speed bump in, you're literally going to have to put it on every single road. Because I know now that people know that Cherry Street has all these speed bumps, they say it's faster to go up and go by the Katona Library. because you don't have to wait for all the speed bumps. So unless you blanket the place with speed bumps, which you don't want.
Why not though? Why don't we want that? I walk my dog every morning.
If you
Yeah,
guys
you need a microphone.
use the microphone, please.
Why don't you?
Yeah, you just got to get on camera there if you could.
Well, most places where they were put, people, like in Yorktown, they had to be taken out.
Right.
People were screaming about them after they got, their cars got wrecked or broken and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just telling you the facts.
I mean, there's certain areas, and what we did years ago is over in Lake Lincolndale. If there's certain areas that we find are real, you people live here, where it might be faster, we have done temporary. Like, for instance, over on Lake Lincolndale, during the summer, the kids walk back and forth to the lake. So we put strips out there, and the highway department goes out there, and at the beginning of the swimming season, they put them out, and at the end of the season, they bring them back. I mean, if there's roads here that we can identify that seem to be, really the main places where they.
One place is right here in front.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Somewhere where people are going to be going across the street a lot.
Well, yeah, and they're whipping around these roads
Right.
like crazy. And people, we own the building, we own the property across the street. On the weekends, there are parties. People are trying to cross the street.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous.
Yeah, and that's the exact idea that you would use it for.
Yeah, so I've heard a lot about the speed bumps over on Cherry Street. And I actually slowed down and kind of eyeballed them and looked at them, and they seem to be portable. Like they're mats, basically, rubber mats.
Right.
Because I can imagine in the winter,
They're going to pull them up.
they're going to be pulled up.
You can't plow that.
But it's, once again, like, from the chief's perspective, his experience is, they cause damage, people make up the speed, does it slow them down? To get over it, yeah, you got to slow down. It's not something we're going to rule out, but it has to be, something that the highway department and the chief of police, we look at, we study, possibly, we try it here. But we're not ruling out that type of technique, especially with the invention of those new type of speed humps.
So what do we have to do to get you guys to think about putting them at least out?
You just did.
The interesting part of Cherry Street is that it also says radar control. So you have a speed bump and you're like, whatever, but you don't know where the cameras are. So.
Well, I can certainly reach out to the Bedford supervisor and police department down there and see, we'll make that commitment to do a little research, see how that's working for them.
And some of those that they have there are solar powered there. The good part is self-contained, no electricity. The bad part is when it rains like it has been, they're not working. So, but it might be something that we would put some money in. I think that's not a bad idea. Also talking about research, striping has been shown as you create the impression that the road is narrowing, people do slow down. So probably looking at the research that's involved of what actually works and doesn't work would probably be a good start. And then looking, like you say, for this particular areas that people in an area know are the most dangerous parts, that might be something to focus in on.
You guys have done a great job of putting the caution children signs up, but again, they get ignored, or people don't trim their hedges so that people have good visibility of those signs. Like our street right here becomes a cut through when, if you put speed bumps on Hillendale,
That's just that.
Sure.
and, my kids are outside playing basketball. So how do we, like you were saying, you're just gonna find the next cut through? How do you avoid it? We right now have a speeder, I don't know if it's a quad or a motorcycle, at 3:30 every morning, so come back at 3:30 tonight. You will hear them and see them.
Past my bedtime now.
And now we have, in the middle of the night speeders.
Okay. Sir?
Two things. Two things. I don't know if you looked at the one. Some other communities have, they take an unmanned police car and park it out in the area. And one of the communities I go through quite often, and I know the car's there, I know it's unmanned, but I slow down all the time. Everybody does.
Yeah, the one
So
time that you're gonna.
it's
the
a
one time
portable,
it's there.
it's a portable unit. You can move it around all through the town. The other thing, what about speed cameras? Technology.
Good suggestion.
Speed cameras, I think, is something that are going to have to come sooner or later to this town. That's not up to me. As far as years ago, I put out a car on Mayapack Avenue, unmarked car, and I put a dummy in the car. Not a real. And they stole the dummy, so. True. The answer is police presence. That's the answer, and as I said before, voluntary compliance. That's the answer. But we can't be everywhere all the time. We're a part-time police department, by the way.
I understand, but you put an unmanned police car, you tint the windows,
Yeah.
and you move it every couple of days.
Yeah, that works for a little while, yes, you're right, correct. And the speed machines, as I said before, are very effective. They slow people down. And our radar.
You know, maybe if you put the speed bumps like on Overhill, you're gonna address two things in one shot. It's speeding, you slow everybody down who lives here, and you will stop the cut through Shenandoah.
That's
You just
Overhill?
said before, and this happened to me the other day. Going into Katona, I didn't go down Cherry Street, I went down 684. It will keep the people who are cutting through Shenandoah out of there if you start doing speed bumps before the stop sign, after the stop sign, all the way down. I think what you'll do is you'll divert people out of here, and they won't come through. And these people who are speeding around here as a loop, either in cars, the younger kids on motorcycles, I think you will stop that. Two things. They won't come through here, and you slow people down. It's a hazard to walk my dog every morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, with just people going to work or something. You have to slow it down, and then yes, at night, cars are flying on us. When I walk the dog at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, there's kids flying through here. And those speed bumps, maybe keep them out of here, or at the minimum, slow them down, so you get two benefits on Overhill. One cost.
Is it-
I'd like to see that happen quickly.
Is it your impression that those people you're talking about who are speeding around are from outside of Shenorock and use that? And the same thing with the 3:30 a.m. speeder. Any idea? Is it just somebody cutting through or somebody who's just up late at night?
From that one, I think that's someone who lives here, and
Yeah.
they will be found very quickly.
Uh-huh.
But the other complaints are, I think, just folks zipping through here as a race course at night. It's not the folks that live here. You know, the ones that are really speeding at high rates of speed are just kids zipping around the neighborhood or whining and everything. And they're gonna wind up in a tree soon, and it's happening.
It has, right near my house.
Sure.
Get past.
I think you start looking into laying those removable ones down so they can be pulled up for the winter and slow everything down in this neighborhood, and you'll keep people out of here that are just zipping through here. There's other things happening in here too, that we want to keep the people out. And that will help. And
Okay.
what you said about taking different roads instead of Cherry Street, that's what we need to do. We need to keep the folks that are just zipping through here. out.
Well, I'm going to suggest, Ms. Silverstein mentioned about getting the community together. I would say those of you that want to come to the town with areas like Overhill, like in front of the, if you guys get together and do that, identify areas, we can explore parking an unmarked car or I will check with Bedford to find out what these speed bumps actually accomplish. The chief has said he puts our speed machines up. We can do that. We'll put them based on what your suggestions are. Okay. Thank you.
All right, another complaint I got from Shenrock, a garbage truck coming very early in the morning. They're not supposed to pick up garbage before 7 a.m. We got numerous complaints. We finally got them, gave out approximately 5 summonses. As far as I know, that problem is solved, unless somebody has different in the audience. ATVs, that was mentioned, is a big problem. I can't go too far in talking about ATVs tonight. Unfortunately, I think most of us are aware a young boy got killed on one who lived in Shenrock. And we'll certainly send out our condolences and have to the family of that young boy. He was on an ATV. It's in litigation now. It is a big problem all over town. We don't chase them. We're not going to chase any 15-year-old kid because he'll get hurt and it's not worth it, you're right. We do bring them home to their parents. Last week we got 5 of them. This week, 5 of them. We caught them, brought them home to their parents, and hopefully it solved the problem for a little while. But it's a town-wide problem everywhere in town. But I won't go too far on that because it is in litigation, and they might call me to testify on something I said. Narcotics. Again, I'm not going to lie, narcotics is all over town, and it's getting worse. It used to be a Bronx problem or a ghetto problem. That's over. It's everywhere. We do have a problem in Shenrock here. We turn it over to the State Police Narcotics Unit, and they are watching certain things in Shenrock as we speak. I don't want to get into it, but I'm very proud of 2 of my uniform officers. About a month ago, I'm not going to say where in town, they made a tremendous arrest of cocaine, selling cocaine. It did slow it down, the sale of cocaine in the town. I'm not going to get too far into that because we're still investigating more on that. But I'm very proud of my cops because it's very hard in uniform to make an arrest like that. Usually undercover people do that. They tell me for years, I've lived in Linkerdale 50 years, and Rocky's Deli and the post office always seems to be where wrong people hang out, and that seems to be where a lot of the problems are. And I'm sure I'm not telling anybody to tail out of school on that. Gentleman before said domestic violence. We got plenty of domestic violence in town, including Shenrock. We have a wonderful policewoman who, as I mentioned in the beginning, she goes over and above to help these mostly females who are really in danger, and helps them at all times. I'll have coffee with them, and I'm very proud of that. So this little part-time police department, I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm very proud of them because they do a heck of a lot of good work, and I hope you agree with that. I'm open for any questions or any other problems because nobody ever calls me to say happy birthday or I'm happy. So I'm used to getting shot at.
Yeah.
I figured.
Chief, we thank you for your presentation, and please join me in a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys do a heck of a job.
Wait, that's not true. I did call you a couple years ago. You were our citizen of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Starting to bleed it.
Okay, next on our agenda is Shenorock Water Quality Update. I've asked Adam Smith, our water superintendent, to comment on recent developments with your water. Adam?
Okay, how are you? I'm Adam Smith. I'm the Superintendent of Water and Sewer. I've been here since 1986, 32 years. Before that, I was with New York City Water Supply. Over the past summer, we had some brown water, yellow water, red water issues over on Miller Road, not Miller, I'm sorry, Overhill, Ty Road, Forest, Old Mill, and Ross. So we were investigating why we were having these issues. And while we were out flushing the hydrants, we discovered that we had 4 valves that were actually in the off position. When they were shut off last year during our flushing program, because we wanted to draw the water towards those shut off valves and not in both directions, they were left closed. Leaving them closed caused what is called a biofilm. That the water doesn't move through the pipe, it gets stagnant, it loses its oxygen, starts to, the rust in the pipe starts to come off the pipe, causes odor problems, causes discoloration. So once we got those valves open a couple weeks ago, we've seen a significant difference in the water quality. And that's my update on the water quality issues. Just want to point out that it's myself and 2 other employees are at the water department and the sewer department. Some of the statistics that we have over 240 fire hydrants that we take care of, maintain. When the fire department rolls up on a hydrant in Somers, they know they're going to get water because we've already checked it. We have 429 water main valves in the system. In Shenorock, the water valves were installed in 1932. We have a program, we've been replacing them on and off and actually repairing them on and off for the last 20 years. We do 2-3 a year plus a couple of repairs, so we're getting 5 or 6 valves done every year. We have 26 miles of water main, so that takes a lot of time to flush and clean out. We have 1,130 service connections. We have to read the meters 4 times a year for those service connections. We have a 1.5 million gallon storage tank that we maintain. Water testing. We do daily water testing. We check the water every day at least 5 locations for chlorine and turbidity. Turbidity is the clarity of the water. All those readings, all those testing is reported to the health department monthly. We do coliform testing weekly. We do lead and copper annually. There's no lead lines in Shenorock. We have no lead service lines. I know Flint, Michigan is a big discussion, but we do not have that kind of distribution system. All our pipes are cast iron or ductile iron. Sewer. We have, I know Joe talked earlier about sewer. We have 5 sewer pump stations right now. It's in the preserve and on Route 6. We have 13 miles of sewer mains. We have 166 manholes that we have to inspect. We inspect about half of them every year. And we have to report those inspections to the county. We also operate 3 non-community water supplies in town, the Town Hall, Reese Park, and Van Tassel Park. So myself and 2 other employees do all that work, plus, handle all the customer complaints. So, does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
My water's still brown on Forest.
And when did you call me?
I haven't called you, I just assumed you were in the process of fixing it.
And
Well,
he is-
we flushed Forest many times. And you know Andrea Glickman?
Yes.
She lives on Old Mill. She's my source. I call her, or she lets me know if there's any issues. I talked to Tom. There's a Tom that lives on Forest. Yeah. He lets me know when that water, if there's any problem with that water, he calls me immediately.
Right, well, suffice it to say, if you're having discoloration in your water,
You have to call me.
yeah, we have to track down the reason for it.
I just figured it was still flushing or.
We have been flushing. For the past month, we've been flushing. Right now,
It shouldn't be brown, Tommy, it shouldn't be brown.
when you go home, it shouldn't be brown.
It's been brown like for a week already.
Go ahead.
Yes.
All right, Adam, I'm on Crest Drive.
Uh-huh.
And I have to say, I've been here for 35 years. When we first came, I was your best friend, or your worst enemy, because I was in this office all the time, dumping water.
Right.
Since we moved and got out of more water, we've really had, as far as I'm concerned, great water until this past summer.
Right.
I'm watching online, people complaining. I'm not home, I'm away most of the summer. But the last 2 weeks, I want to say, on and off, and I saw you had the flushing signs out there. But it's like, if you don't do your laundry at 6 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, you have brown water until 3 o'clock.
Well, tomorrow is our last day of flushing.
Okay.
So you shouldn't see any additional discoloration.
Now, but you were talking mainly down at Raw.
Well, that was where most of our complaints were coming from. Ty Road.
Okay. I know you were flushing at the top of Crest,
Yes.
on Overhill, there that day when I noticed it. It's just that, like I said, I used to always be in your face about it. But I do say the water's been great for a long time since we got Amwalk. And I do appreciate your hard work on it.
Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah, hi, I'm on North Shenorock. I mean, the water was clean until the summer,
Yes, I agree.
so I haven't called.
All right. Yeah, so, and I think we've narrowed it down, we contributed to those 4 valves being closed. One we couldn't get open and we replaced it, and the other 3 are now open. And I noticed immediately in our testing that the issue had subsided. But we have been flushing continuously throughout Shenorock for this past month, 4 weeks.
So I remember over the summer, there was a complaint about discolored water. Once it was reported, so Adam investigated, and you found a contractor up on 6.
Well, there was a lot of construction going on Route 6. They were taking more, they had a meter to fill up their construction vehicles. When they opened the valve, it would create a flow in that area, increase the velocity of the water, and the water would turn brown. We stopped him from doing that. We ended that. We fixed the valve. The water mains in Shenorock are cast iron pipe installed in 1932. So cast iron, when in the presence of water, is going to rust. The way you fix that is to clean the pipe and put cement lining on the pipe. Now, I talked to Joe that was here earlier, his office, and we did a preliminary study to go over some of the other towns in Westchester to dig up the pipe and put the cement lining in. You're looking at $280 a foot for the pipe. So to do Ty Road from Shenorock to Overhill would be $250,000. So I will continue to flush, and replace the valves before I spend $250,000 to cement line Ty Road.
So we're looking out for your best interests, believe me.
It sounds like another bang for our buck is rip all the streets up and put the sewers in, put new water pipes in, fix it all at one time. Do that.
$280 a foot.
Our money wisely.
$280 a foot,
Put new pipe in.
it's not going to be $280 a foot to put new pipe in. It's going to be a lot more than that.
Put the roads once, put sewers,
You can't,
put new water
you don't
pipes
put,
in. You know what, put natural gas in too. A lot of the neighbors want natural gas,
All right.
preserves housing, open the roads, fix everything for one time, and then you have a.
all right, listen. You can't open the road once, you got to open the road twice. Because you can't put a sewer line in a water main. You have to have 10 feet separation.
I'm talking about paving.
What?
Opening the roads, lay everything down new, set it up, and do it right. If you want to get back to the
Okay, it's,
I'm not a
Adam,
wealthy, I'm not,
it's a comment.
all right,
You
I
know,
understand. but
Yes, would that be a great
would
thing
be
to
a
do? Yeah,
perfect
it would
world.
be. I mean,
Can't
it's,
afford it.
yeah, you're looking at a town board here that takes your tax dollars very, very seriously. And we spend them judiciously, and we don't want to raise taxes. I mean, what you're talking about basically is bonding, and I think Flushing is.
I think if you
has
call
to
me,
be
if you
handled.
call me and let me know, you call me the minute you see the water's brown, I'll come and fix it. I don't care what time of day or night it is. It's a lot cheaper than relining the pipe.
Thank you,
Right?
Adam.
Thanks.
Oh, one gentleman.
There's a gentleman there with one more question.
Go ahead.
I'd like just to attest to everybody that I'm a resident here of Cypress Lane, and I had groundwater all summer. And I did call the water department, and I spoke with Paul, and they were very attentive to coming out. And Paul did come out actually and explain to me about the valve.
The Wiegand house.
What?
Wiegand?
Yes, and I'm actually the owner of a excavation business that installs water and sewer lines. So I could attest that Mr. Smith's comment about the valve is true, and since that's been done, we have not had groundwater out. So.
Good.
Good.
Okay.
So now we just have to, we got to get to the people who are still have it.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
Thanks for the good job you're doing.
And team.
That's the last of the Center Rock stuff.
Okay, moving along. Our next agenda item is Somers Academy. Just to refresh the public's memory, at our last board meeting, we were presented with a proposal to have a boarding school move into the IBM property, repurposing all 5 buildings. And we had a presentation by the principals, presented it to the town board, and to us, and I can't speak for all the board members, but it appears on the surface to be a very good use for that property has a very little impact, negative impact on the town, but possibly would have a very large financial impact on the town. Once it's up and running, there'll be 1,800 students there. Those students are going to come down into the shopping areas. These are going to probably be a number of international students. Their parents will come over here while they're in their 4 years of schooling. Other places, they buy houses or rent them while their kids are in school, and then they move back to their own countries. So we're looking at this as a positive, but we're just at the beginning stages. So this next agenda item is really a discussion amongst the town board. We now have a formal proposal. This is only a proposal, and I'll read the points here into the record. So it's a proposed adaptive reuse of the existing buildings on the former IBM campus and construction of certain facilities for use as a private, for-profit, science, technology, engineering, and Art Design and Mathematics Academy for grades 9 through 12 as both a boarding and day school requiring site plan approval. To facilitate the above proposal, the applicant is proposing to subdivide the 723-acre property requiring subdivision approval into 3 lots, only one of which will house the academy, the second to house site utilities, and the third for uses not yet to be determined, but not to be developed until sometime in the future. So the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance are required to permit the academy, which is now in the Office Business 100 district. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to accept the petition.
Yeah, I would just make a comment that if you do go online and you see any of these items, the petition is something that we'll review. We're going to accept it, but we'll review. We're not accepting each item that's in the petition.
You're actually receiving.
Well, we just voted to receive it, so we
Not
still have to.
accepting it.
Oh, okay, so that's, okay, better
Receiving
wording. Okay.
Right, so this is going to be a living document. This is their proposal, and the first item that we have to do is accept the petition.
No, receiving.
Receive, excuse me.
It's dumb. Accept, receive.
So we'll change that in the
So I'll make a
minutes.
motion to receive acknowledgement of receipt of the petition.
Second.
Second.
Is that a
Do we need a
roll
roll call for that? Okay, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Yep.
So moved. All right, the second item would be to declare the town board the lead agency on this project?
It's not, it's, you have to declare your intent to be lead agency.
Okay.
Because you have to circulate your intent and wait
Among-
30 days to see if
See if
anyone else
wants to do
to
it.
be the lead agency.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to declare our intent
Oh, yeah, that's right.
as the town board to be a lead agency.
Second.
Before this is actually her memo.
Yeah, okay. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And then on the third issue here is to refer the petition and request for zoning change, site plan approval, and subdivision approval to the list of involved and interested agencies identified in the intent to be lead agency form under the seeker process. Does that require?
It doesn't require a roll call, but the only thing you have to add there after the zoning change is you also have to amend the comprehensive plan because it did not include, it did not envision a school as a
school up
use
there?
on that property.
Okay, and revision of our recently completed comprehensive plan. Okay, so let the
It's
record,
also a living document. It's not unusual.
Right.
okay. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. All right.
Just a
So,
comment, Rick, in terms of this site, I mean, of all the possible things you can do here, this is just about one of the best things that can be done with this. It's the least disruptive to the environment and the current footprint.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
And so that makes it kind of exciting. I would like to see if we can get the place named Somers Academy, but I think you reminded me that someone with a much bigger checkbook is going to get the naming rights to this.
I think they said the state retains that.
Do they?
I think that's what he said, yeah.
Okay.
No, they
They have to apply to the state.
They have to
Oh,
apply
I'm
to
sorry.
the state.
They have to apply to the state. We don't.
I think they're in the process of applying to the state for a formal name.
Well, as long, I think, I mean, we're not here to answer questions or anything like that. At some point, we will. I know the school district, though, will have an interest in what, if any, special education services they have to supply, because the school district be the one that would be responsible for that. So if someone comes from another part of this state, and maybe other states, I don't know the laws that well, and they come to that academy, or whatever we call it, and they receive special, and they're in need of special services, the school district has to charge back, if I remember correctly, to that district. So that's just something, what do they imagine? How are they going to do that? Are they aware of it? And probably, I know one parent in town asked me, what about performing arts? If it's STEM, and my kid wants to go, or their kids need performing arts, would they come to our schools for that? Or if my kid's there, do they get it there? So those are just some things, as time goes on, we'll have to ask them about.
Well, they have said that they're going to be a STEAM school.
STEM.
No,
No, STEAM. They're adding arts.
Oh, STEAM. Oh, I'm sorry.
They're adding arts and
Okay.
design.
Yeah, all right.
Curriculum.
So then, is that performing arts? I don't know. Okay.
I think it would be all the arts.
They're going to be building, one of the buildings they're proposing to construct is an art center.
All right, well, I'll let her know, then. She's got 50,000.
Yeah.
A year.
A year.
So once again, we're referring this out to county planning, all our involved boards in the town, planning board, et cetera. And
Do we send it to the schools, or do they apply to the schools, or is that part of it at all?
I don't think the schools are an involved or interested agency, so they would not normally be on the list.
But if they have a special ed interest, which they do,
They should be added then, if you think that's true.
that's the law.
Okay, so they should be added.
They have some
As
sort
an
of,
interested
because they'd have to
agency.
charge back the other district to get it in and
Wow.
to get the money in.
Because I don't
Okay.
think they're normally on the list, so that's a good add-on then.
yeah, I don't think it's a problem referring it out to,
Why not?
Yeah.
Just have to make sure to tell Saret to add them.
Got a couple of questions, actually.
All right.
yeah.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is
sir.
the whole site been asked to be a school district?
Yeah.
The all 723 acres?
No.
No, well, that's what's, in the petition that we have right now, they're taking a portion of it
School.
to be a school, and then but that's what some of the responses that we'll have with them.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now, the proposal is for three, they want to divide the 723 into three parcels. One has their utilities, one is the school, and one, would remain as the,
TBD.
to be determined.
But when that is determined, then they would have to come
Back.
for that use, because we don't know what that use is.
I understood. Thank you.
No, that'd be behind you, actually.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Steve Schutz, I'm the chief engineer up at the facility.
Oh. Yeah,
I need the mic.
Yeah, just repeat your name again.
My name's Steve Schutz. I'm the chief engineer for the IBM facility, or Sebastian Capital's facility. My question was, by the petition that was just approved here, does that...
Accepted.
Is that...
Accepted.
Tentative,
Received.
tentative.
Sorry, received.
Tentative. Is this like the first step for rezoning the area? Because from what we've previously been told, it was an office and college campus, but not a high school.
Right. That's correct.
So,
This is the first step of what will be a lengthy process.
right.
To zone it for that
Right,
purpose.
so it's zoned right now as OB-100. And what's allowed there are a number of different uses, one of which would have been a college or university.
Right.
But it did not include
High school.
a high school or boarding school.
Okay, so...
That's why we're going through this
We
process.
need to do this, and that's how come they want to subdivide the land so they could get, particular zoning in different areas.
Well, I know online there was a presentation that was submitted, I guess, in the last town board, that had said that they were going to try and fast-track this to have students on school by 9th and 10th grade students by 2020.
Right.
And it seems kind of fast-tracked
Agree with you.
for this, especially if this is just a preliminary to go forward with, I guess it would have to be the county, state, and
Yeah,
government.
all the
Academy.
alphabets.
We'll go
Come in
through
place.
all of the appropriate procedures. It's going to be before the planning board, who's going to be, making sure everything is
Yeah, we're going to follow the secret
Yeah,
process.
we'll follow the secret process right through.
So you have been up there for how long?
I started the facility up for IBM in 1987,
So you've been there ever since?
and I left for a while, and I've been back for the last 17 years.
And it's your plan or their plan to
Yeah,
go forward
we're
together?
planning on staying there for the facility to open. We have to keep the facility up and running at present, just to keep everything climatized so it doesn't fall apart, and, you know, so.
You live in town here?
No, I live up in Pauling, but I travel down here.
So you just came?
Yeah, it's like a reverse
I just wanted to know.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit more about what the plans are and what kind of, you know, timeline we're actually
So it's
trying to
an
situate.
it's an aggressive plan that they have, and the town will follow all its procedures. But you know, if this was something that we didn't feel was in the best interest of the town, we would have told them right up front, and we wouldn't proceed with the receipt of a proposal.
Right.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we had another question.
But
Thank you.
since you're
Thank you
here,
very
please keep coming back, and if there's any secret information you'd like to feed to us, please feel free. Now they're on a first-name basis. All right.
My name is Bob Madigan, and I live over on Carolyn Way. I was wondering, you've said that this is would be in the best interest of the town. What are those things that you have decided that would be in the best interest of the town? Is it the tax receipts? Is it more business downtown?
Yeah, I think I did mention that.
What? Because you started off saying, you know, will have little effect, or
Well, it's gonna
little
have-
negative
No, it's
effect.
definitely
So
going to have a major
therefore-
impact.
So therefore, the question is, has anyone on the board discussed this with other towns that have private schools located in their towns? And what do they think the effects of those schools are on the quality of life in the town?
I have not.
A good part of this is
Has anybody had any kind of...
I've had
discussion
conversations. I was on the school board for years.
with other private schools?
And so
that
I
are
know the
located in
towns-
small towns.
I know the towns where those are. I work down county in a town that has that right by. And those are something that we'll do. Now, we've had this for several weeks, so we'll certainly have that about what are the, and we question them about that. What do you see as being an advantage to Somers? As I said to one of the people there, and we all kind of agreed, do you want to be a part of Somers or apart from Somers? So it has to benefit you and benefit the town. So for example, one of the things that was brought up is that some of their students will come up on the train somewhere from southern Westchester or maybe north and stop at Purdy's and walk. They also said that their students would benefit the town because they would help businesses, not only when their parents are there, but for the older kids who might walk, who live there, who might walk to get pizza. Well, to do that, sidewalks would be beneficial, and the thought was maybe you could build those sidewalks along 116 that would pass Carolyn Way, and that would be a benefit to the town. So there are issues. One of the things is when you compare it to other things that they might turn it into, this might have less impact than other possibilities.
I understand.
And I think that was the intent of that statement.
The other question is, you know, the whatever that statement is worded, that to facilitate this from moving forward to subdivide the property, is it contingent on a subdivision of the property?
Well, sure.
And that's a large piece of property. What was involved when it was first planned that way? Was it always intended to be kept as one piece of property, or was it the understanding that it could be subdivided in the future?
I mean, when IBM was created?
Yes,
Well, they had
when
the whole
facility
campus,
went
but
in.
you can always apply to repurpose property, and that's a rezoning application, which is what they're making.
So they're remaking a new zoning application. So
But they're looking to
it is
amend it to
contingent.
allow
So you're
certain
saying it is contingent that they have this rezoning for them to move
But
ahead.
they already did subdivide it a bit once across the street.
Yeah, I understand that, but do you know or not know whether a subdivision, for them to proceed, it's contingent that the property is subdivided? In other words, if we can't subdivide it, we're not going to proceed with this application.
Well, they're only leasing a certain amount of property to the school venture. So the owners of the property are going to be the landlord, and they're only leasing part of what they own to the school venture. So yes, I think it is a condition.
It's a condition.
The land itself is not being sold.
No,
to the
I
school.
understand that.
Right.
but somebody wants to subdivide it, whether it's a school or the owners of the property want to subdivide it, is that separate from actually the school taking possession of whatever they're going to take and do whatever they're going to do?
Yeah, because their plan is to lease a smaller amount of land than the total.
So in other words, the owner doesn't have a
723
tenant
acres.
for all the property, just has, the school will proceed as if it's a smaller piece of property.
Correct.
Okay.
Probably around 2/3.
And I do want to mention.
One other question though, going forward, what other discussions will the board have about this?
Okay, well, part of the secret process that we mentioned we're going to be going through is to hold a public hearing.
Okay.
Public hearing or public hearings.
Oh, yeah.
And there'll be more additional information. Like we said, we're just receiving this now, and as I said at the beginning, we're reviewing it, we're sending it out
Right,
to
well,
get comments.
the reason I came up is because you all seem very positive about this. And if this is the first introduction into the town's agenda, it seems like there has to be a lot more work to be done.
Well, we had an
for
informal
consideration.
presentation.
Well, I understand that. But the impression is that everybody's on board with this.
To address that concern, when I first heard about this, and I think it's part of our job description, is to be very skeptical. And I was very skeptical about this. But again, in terms of what could be put up there and what would be the least disruptive thing up there, this seems to be a good fit, and I'm willing to consider it. And
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
But the devil's in the details. So when you say, what other things will we talk about, they'll have to come and present those details. And how is that going to work? And what will happen to the part that isn't in this zoning part? And what is your plan there? And how is it going to look? And how will you benefit Somers? Those are the questions. It is our job to ask and, in effect, to cross-examine those proposals to make sure that everyone in Somers, obviously not everybody will agree on anything, you know, of course, but that if you weigh that is in the best interest of Somers. The other thing is, the town can't solicit opportunities.
Right.
You know, we don't own it. We can't go out and say, hey, could you come to Somers and do this for us? The owner has that. And so what does the owner present to us? You know, we can't go out and look for other things.
Well, to
you know,
a
if
degree.
Disney
I mean,
wants to
if
come
you-
with studios.
If you let people know that we have a facility that a school might be, you know, is there a competition for that property? For another school, university, you know, it's.
It's been on the market, though.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
You
been on the
know,
market for a
there's
So-
no doubt about that.
And also, just kind of that as an aside to this, though, this property was submitted for that Amazon bid, where they were looking for 1 million square feet to set up a northeastern headquarters. And there were 238 applicants, and they whittled it down to about 28 that they're still considering. And that property is still on that list. So, in my mind, if, instead of having, you know, an Amazon distribution center, no, it was going to be for executives and,
Headquarters.
you know, second headquarters, right? So, but the volume of traffic and impact on the town moving in an Amazon as opposed to a boarding school, maybe that's part of the enthusiasm you're hearing from us.
But you're right, no one should come in front of the board and we go, hey, that's great, let's go, all right, you're all done. That certainly is not our
I
job.
think there's a lot of questions.
There will be a lot of
And there will
questions.
be.
And I hope you
and
come to
hope
the
you're
public
there.
hearing and ask them, yes.
Please do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any other questions on, okay. No, those were good. All right, item number 7 is to award a bid and authorize the supervisor. I'll make a motion to award the bid and authorize supervisor to execute a contract for placement of solar panels on the highway garage annex with Candela Systems Corporation in the amount of $96,203 per memo dated October 3rd from Saret Dim, Director of Planning.
Geez, Rich, what'd you say?
I'm giving money away. I'm giving money away.
Hey, come back.
Oh, you're not getting it, so you're leaving.
Bye.
So you just
Okay,
need a,
Yeah, motion to authorize the bid.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Number 8, authorize the supervisor to execute the following. Purchase, this is under the highway garage, purchase of one new 2018 Ram 3500 HD 4x4 dual rear-wheeled 60-inch cab chassis and utility body with plow from Robert Green Truck Division in Rockville, New York, at a cost of $52,331 off the Onondaga City bid number 7974 for trucks and truck equipment per memo dated October 4th from Tom Cheverini. So, motion to execute that purchase.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And
I
then,
believe, Rick, that the monies come from his budget, a collection of his budget, as well as monies he's earned
From
for
chips.
recycling, scrap metal.
yes,
and
yep, good point.
It's not a serious budget item.
Correct. The New York State Energy Resource and Development Authority, NYSERDA, agreement to purchase 2 clean energy vehicles to add to the town's fleet per emails dated October 4th and October 10th from Saret Dim, Director of Planning. So this is our NYSERDA grant. This is the agreement to purchase. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
And that grant there, because we had qualified as a clean energy community or something like that, is to a great extent, last week we had the Energy Environment Committee here, as a result of that work, we qualified for the money that is now being used for those vehicles. So they deserve a little pat on the back for
Oh, but by all means.
their small committee that needs more people on it.
And we're getting there.
We will.
We have some, okay, so let me get back to, okay, so personnel. So we have current vacancies. You can find these vacancies and list of boards on our website, but affordable housing, we do have some recent openings on the Energy and Environment Committee. It's not posted here yet. These were recent vacancies. Upcoming vacancies on the Library Board of Trustees, Planning Board, Zoning Board, and a recent opening in Parks and Rec Board.
Oh, right.
Okay, number 3, I'd like to acknowledge the resignation of Marilyn Murphy from the Somers Planning Board Secretary position. She's been employed by the town for the past 30 years, and this would be effective October 1st. You know, Marilyn was a full-time employee, then came back and was a part-time secretary to the Planning Board. She was a valued employee, and Marilyn, we wish you well in your retirement.
Yeah, I got to work with Marilyn in my stint on the planning board, always professional. She just did a fantastic job. She was always a great smile and bright spot in the office, so she will be missed from the office.
Yes.
Here, here. I'd like to acknowledge the resignation of Maria Lisa as a member of the Somers Energy and Environment Committee.
You're not going to try that last name.
And why are you chuckling, everyone? Check the agenda, you'll know that. But we really appreciate all volunteers, and we thank you for the time that you spent with the Somers Energy Environment Committee.
And as the supervisor said at our work session last week, it sometimes seems like we have people dropping off boards quite a bit. In many cases, it's not due to them not wanting to do it. It's because things have changed with their work, with their home. And in the case of the EEOC, they've asked often to stay on as what they call associate members who don't vote, but they still come to the meetings, if I'm correct.
Yeah, well, but I've talked to them about doing away with that, because what's the difference between the public coming to a committee meeting and an associate member? So it's a public meeting, and, we appoint committee members that was just, I guess, a way of putting people on a mailing list. That's what Denise was saying.
But it's a great board, they're very active, we spoke to them last week about some things, so it's something.
Well, and you see, they basically led us
Yeah, right.
down the road through NYSERDA
To get the cars.
to purchase, this will be our third electric,
Second and third, yeah.
second and third electric vehicles, yeah.
Very productive group.
Okay, moving along to agenda item H, consensus agenda, 1 through 7. Number 7 is to announce that October is American Archives Month. And if there's any questions or issues with 1 through 7?
Second.
If there are none, I'll make a motion to accept the consensus agenda.
Second.
1 through 7.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. And I'm sparing you all announcements tonight because there are so many things happening. I'm going to direct the public to our website under events, and there's a lot there for friends and family. So get it, and there are a lot of outdoor activities. So get out there and enjoy them.
Can I give just one shout out to one event coming up on
By all
Saturday
means.
from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., of course, is the annual event of Soccer Fest. And that is one of the top 3 best days in Somers, in my opinion. And I'm making this announcement on one of their previous commissioners' birthday, Christina Ketch. So the legacy lives on, and thank you for all your volunteerism. It's going to be a great day.
All right.
Here,
If you're around tomorrow, Somers plays Yorktown, 7 o'clock for the play-in.
First
into the
round.
Playoffs, it's a home game. So it was a good game last time. They came from behind to win.
Yep.
So we expect a good game tomorrow.
Big crowd, good game.
Go Tuskers.
Husker up.
I'd like to point out that our next scheduled meeting of this board will be our budget hearings on October 17th and 18th. They'll be held from 1 to 4:30 at the Somers Townhouse. Those hearings are open to the public, and all are welcome. Okay, is there any other closing issues, comments, concerns? Okay, hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Good night, Somers.